Hello and welcome to the Sports Wire, brought to you by the Garden City Telegram. This is a weekly talk show about Garden City High School, Garden City Community College, and area sports. My name is Brett Marshall, and I'm the sports editor of the Garden City Telegram.
And I'm Levi Bernfin, the sports reporter for the Garden City Telegram.
Well, Levi, Garden City Community College played Ellsworth, Iowa last Saturday afternoon at home and come up on the short end of a 38-14 score. Tough day for the Busters. What did you see in the game that was really prevalent?
It was just ugly all around. There was not really any highlights to speak of. J. Campbell was hurt, their usual starter from weeks 1 and week 2. And so he didn't play. They started with Luke Wallstead, an Andell graduate. He came in, couldn't get anything going. They went to Todd Porter, a Western Kentucky graduate quarterback. He got some more success, more yards, but turned the ball over 4 times as well. It's something that I think they just need to move on from. Don't dwell on it too much. After Penn State lost to Temple in the NCAA ranks, they buried the tape. Maybe GCCC needs to do the same thing. They only had 3.4 yards play per offense. They allowed 489 yards of offense to Ellsworth, who was 0-2 coming into the game. So overall, there's just not much you can take from it that's positive at all.
And before the season started, their defense was supposed to be the strong point of the team. What's kind of gone on with that?
Well, they've had some injuries. Alex Figueroa is out, possibly for the year, at linebacker, so he didn't play. Jeremy Falk, a defensive end, didn't play in the second half because of performance issues and jumping off sides a couple of times in the first half. So those guys were out, and they didn't have a ton of success stopping the run or the pass. So it was just an overall bad day. Brett, I'm a defensive guy. I love defense. When I'm watching games, all I want to do is watch the defensive side. I wasn't able to go to Garden City High School's game against Mays, obviously, but paint me a picture of what that was like watching them play.
Well, since you're a defensive guy, I think you'd probably really had a great time, walking the sidelines and watching the Garden defense. They've been just unmerciful in the first 2 games, and they were everything a defensive coach would want, in the game against Mays. 67 passing yards, 8 rushing yards for 75 total yards. This is a team that threw for 250 the week before.
Yeah.
This is a team that put up 93 points on Garden in the last 2 seasons. So they're a prolific offensive program, and to shut them down the way they did, in essence, the defense got a shutout. The only touchdown that Mays got was picking up a fumble that was questionable at best and returning it for a touchdown. Other than that, it was a dominating performance by the Garden City defense.
And it was a completely different test from the week before between the triple option to Mays' spread attack. So that's kind of good to see them switching back and forth between the two. On the offensive side for Garden City High School, they really ran the ball with some success. What did you see from that?
Well, I alluded to somebody saying, if they were in the Army and they were with General Patton, he would have enjoyed it because they would just beat up and pounded Mays' defense into submission. 61 rushes, 332 yards, only 10 passes in the game. I mean, they've only thrown the ball 20 times in 2 games now, and they've run it 105. So I think the personality of this Buffalo team is far different than it's been the last 2 or 3 years. This is a run first, pound it inside, get to the outside, and hopefully one of the scat backs, breaks it. And Jared Coster had a great game with 145 yards rushing. Jesse Nunes continues to make good decisions at quarterback. He had 127 yards. And Peyton Hill perhaps had his breakout game on offense. 10 carries, 50 yards, couple of touchdowns, caught 4 passes, was very instrumental in the whole offensive scheme, which I thought broke it open for both Jesse and Jared, to help them free up their running game too. So it was an overall just an impressive game. Had a couple of turnovers, a couple of penalties not happened. It could have been 35-0 instead of 21-7.
Every Saturday, you can find photo galleries from the previous night's football games from the area online at gctelegram.com. We also have photo galleries from golf events and any other sports going on online.
Well, Levi, you talked about burying the game film from last week. They've got a short turnaround this week. They play a Thursday night game at home against Air Force Prep. So what are they going to be looking at from the academy prep team.
Yeah, and that's actually probably going to be a really good thing for them to have a quick turnaround, get back on the field again after that bad loss to Ellsworth. This week, as always, Air Force Prep's going into a triple option offense. Garden City JUCO will have to look out for that. It's assignment football. You have to be very disciplined on all sides. If you have the pitch man to the outside, you got to stay with the pitch man. Even if it looks like the quarterback has a running lane, you have to stay with him. So that is something they have to focus on this week, and something I think that they'll be good at. I think they can be disciplined enough to stop that attack. It's on the offensive side of the ball for GCCC. That's the big question. As it was last week, Campbell, we don't know who's the starter. Campbell, Porter, Wallstead, all three are available, Sims said, to play. Maybe it'll be a combination of the three. Maybe it'll be all three. Maybe Campbell comes back and the offense starts clicking again. That's the big question heading into the game.
Well, not to make it more important than it really is, but this is the third home game in a row, and they've lost 2 of those at home already. So it's kind of critical to get some confidence going into back into the conference season the following week, isn't it?
Right, and that's a good point. Yeah, because this is their last home game before they go to Independence, and then they go to Iowa Western. So yeah, it would be nice to get a win at home, kind of get some little bit of confidence. Get back in the conference schedule with Independence, who is down, but gave Dodge City a really hard game last week. So it would be good to get a win, especially one that's not to the last second. Maybe if they can dominate, pull away in the third to fourth quarter, that'd be really good for them. Garden City High School finally plays their first WAC game this week, taking on Great Bend, who has a coach that played at Garden City High School too. So what are you expecting from that game?
Well, Tony Crow is kind of a legendary name around Garden City. He was the quarterback on the 1998 team that lost in the state championship game against Olathe North, which had a player by the name of Darren Sproles.
I think I've heard of him.
Yeah, I mean,
once or twice.
Pretty good college player at Kansas State and pretty good in the NFL these days.
Yeah, I think he had a pretty good game the other night too.
Good return guy, gets big plays, and he had big plays in 1998. So, but yeah, Coach Crow this is his second year at Great Bend. He'd been down in Texas. He played for Dave Meadows here at Garden High, and then he coached with Coach Meadows down in Texas. Came back to Great Bend a couple of years ago as an assistant coach, and now he's a head coach and inherited a program that was kind of down a little bit. They only won 3 games last year, but they've gotten off to a 2-0 start. He likes the makeup of his group. Not a big senior class, a lot of good juniors, and a really talented sophomore class. They've got a balanced offense right now. They're running about 160 yards, passing for 180. Going to present some problems for the Garden High defense, and then his pride and joy has been his defense. They've done a really good job in their 2 wins against Leavenworth and Hayes, and so he expects a good, tough game. He has high praise for Garden. Thinks they're kind of the favorite, in the WAC this year. So his comment to me was the championship of the WAC goes through Garden City. So he feels like if they can get through by Garden City this week, they've got a good chance to win the WAC.
What do you think the biggest key to the game is then?
Well, I think for Garden City is it's establishing their run game. Great Bend runs a stacked defense. They'll put three down linemen, and then they'll stack 6, in the box, and then has a free safety and a couple cornerbacks. So, he's going to challenge them to establish the run, and if they can, and if they can't, they're going to have to throw the ball. And I think that's what Coach Crow is hoping, that he can force them into throwing the ball. And I think for Garden's defense, it's to make sure that they don't get that balance, that Great Bend's had in their first 2 games, and force them into doing one or the other.
Right, try to take away one of them and make them a one-dimensional team.
Exactly. And, Garden's size up front has been dominating on both the offensive line and defensive line. So I think, like a lot of games, it all starts up front, and whoever wins the battle in the trenches, I think is going to win the game.
Well, the GWAC is off to a really strong start this year. Scott City, Ulysses, Holcomb, all 2-0. They've got a really big game this week in between Holcomb and Ulysses. What do you expect from Friday?
Well, I think the Holcomb-Ulysses game is going to be a fun one to watch if you're fortunate to be there. Ulysses will rely on its running game, and Ian Rudzik, I think he's rushed for 480-some yards in 2 games
He's
now.
pretty good.
Yeah, he's still getting looks from from D1 schools, more of as a linebacker. But, he's having an awfully good start as a running back, too. Holcomb, high-scoring, wide-open offense, spread. Coach Teeter loves to throw the ball first and run second. He's got great receivers. His son Trey's probably the best throwing quarterback in Western Kansas. It's going to be an interesting game, and I think the higher the scoring game, I think the more it favors Holcomb. If it's a defensive struggle, I think Ulysses, certainly has a chance with it being on their home field. So I expect a really great early season game between them. And Scott City is Scott City. They just kind of keep rolling along. They replaced players, and they've got Goodland this week, and they just do what they do, and it's really amazing. Coach O'Neill is now 89-13 in 8+ seasons. So if they have a bad year, I guess it means they lose 2 games.
Right.
And those games against Holcomb and Ulysses for Scott City is waiting in the wings over the next 3 or 4 weeks. So it's a fun time to be in the area if you're a football fan, I think.
Well, waiting in the wings, the 8-man is Ingalls, who's also off to a good start as well. What have you seen from them?
Well, if you go with the old saying, speed burns, it does for Ingalls because they've got speed all over the place. Yeah. Branson Sandoval is doing his thing. Josh Ersick's doing his thing. Yeah. They're just rolling up points like crazy. They scored 84 points last week. I think they had 53 in the first quarter, something like that. So they're doing what I expected them to do. I don't think they'll be tested maybe by Satana a little bit during the season, but probably not until the playoffs, And so the key for them was how deep can they go into the playoffs, because they've got to go through Sharon Springs later in the playoffs probably again, and that's always been a nemesis for them. So our teams that we expected to do well are really doing well, and I think everybody's enjoying that part of it. They're waiting to see how the big games come out.
Absolutely. As some of the local teams are hitting the gridiron on Friday, we also got the women's professionals coming in for the second year in a row this weekend. What are you expecting this weekend?
Well, the women's professional golf tournament is a really special event for Garden City. This will be year 2, and it looks like the weather's going to be a little bit more cooperative this year. Last year it was terribly cold and breezy and a little wet. It was tough conditions for the girls to play in. 132 of all the top women's professionals that are trying to earn their way to the LPGA. This truly is the road to the LPGA, because in another month their season will be over. The top 10 money winners get an automatic card for next year on the LPGA Tour. It's a dogfight amongst the top 15, 20 money winners right now. I mean, they've had more tournaments, they're playing for more money, and it's harder to make that top 10. And there's only a couple $1,000s between, maybe 10th and 15th place right now. So a great field coming back. 39 of the 71 players who made the cut last year are competing again this year. 6 of the top 11, 4 of the top 6. So the quality of the field, is really high. Emily Talley, who's from Napa, California. She's a University of Colorado graduate. She played last year. She was in town early this week to get a practice round in, and she was really looking forward to the warmer weather, and she had this to say about being back in Garden City.
I played, a little bit more than 9 holes today, and the course looks like it's in absolutely amazing shape. The greens are rolling so nicely. The fairway is beautiful. So needless to say, I'm very, very excited to come play here again. I feel like I'm putting awesome right now. My swing is just coming around at the perfect time, so I'm just excited. It's just a fun course, hit it straight, but you also have to hit it specific spots too. So I haven't seen the back 9 or back 5, I guess. I almost got through it all today, so I'm excited to relive a couple of those holes again, and I'm excited to get out there.
Well, the Symetra Tour event gets started this weekend. When's it start for you?
Well, it starts on Friday. The field of 132 will play 18 holes on Friday, 18 holes on Saturday, and then they make a cut to the low 70 in ties for Sunday's final round. They start early in the morning, about 30 minutes after sunrise each day, so it's an early start for some of the girls each day, and they flip-flop time, so one day you play early and the next day you play late, balance things out, hopefully. I think one of the fun things for me is I want to go watch Annie Park play. She's a University of Southern Cal grad. She's from New York. She's been fast-tracking her golf game all along. She won an NCAA championship as a freshman in college. She earned her degree in 3 years at Southern Cal. She's already won 3 times in nine tournaments since June. So she is by far the hottest player on the Symetra Tour right now. Has already secured her card for next year, and yet she decided to commit and come and play this weekend. week, even though she's got her card, cinched up for next year. So it's going to, if you love golf and love women's golf, these gals are really good. They're fun to watch. They've got great golf swings. They work hard at it. It's their livelihood. I think it's a really cool event for Western Kansas to have. You can find video interviews of area athletes, coaches, the professional women's golfers this week online at www.gctelegram.com.
I'm Levi Burnfin.
And I'm Brett Marshall. And you've been watching SportsWire, a weekly talk show about Garden City area sports and Garden City Community College. You can find all the stories and all the video interviews, galleries at gctelegram.com.
And you can find the show every Thursday at 5 p.m.